Welcome to Beyond the Code, the podcast where industry experts and brilliant legal minds discuss the impact of new emerging technologies. I'm your host, Yitzi Hammer, a lawyer and tech enthusiast. Join us as we explore the legal, regulatory, and ethical issues surrounding AI, blockchain, and more. Get ready to go beyond the code and stay ahead of the game. Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Code. It's been really hard for me to jumpstart this after October 7th. It's been hard to do anything other than think about the difficult times that our soldiers are going through and just our industry and society as a whole. But this is something that I really am passionate about. I very much like this podcast and like bringing people on and talking to them about technology and blockchain. And so I mustered up the courage to reach out to a friend and client and co-Israeli entrepreneur within this space. And I am very, very fortunate to welcome Hernan Arber today to our show. I will let Hernan take it from here and tell you a little bit about who he is and what he is and where he's going. But I'm really, really happy to be back up on the horse and charging straight ahead. Hernan, welcome to
Yes.
the podcast.
Hi. Thank you for having me, Itzy. I used to I also have my own podcast, which it's also has been a victim of the latest war since October 7th. So I also haven't actually released an episode my well. So I very much understand the situation. So briefly about myself. I'm also living in Israel. Came here from Mexico 20 years ago in 2 days. And I'm an entrepreneur, computer engineer, musician. I used to make electronic music, trance, and now I'm the CEO, founder of Soundwork, which I hope we can delve into because you're also been being a very, very key. Um, Key foundational part on this project. So basically, I also run a podcast called the Web3 Creators Podcast, which hasn't been releasing many episodes for a few months, but maybe this is a good jumpstart as well for myself. And yeah, really happy to be here.
I didn't like that you started off saying that you used to have a podcast. So I'm happy that by the end of the sentence, you'd already changed that to you have a podcast,
Yeah.
and like you said, this is just getting the ball rolling.
Yes.
So I expect to see an episode out within the week. Yeah. So thanks for joining. I also made Aliyah from the States 25 years ago, and just generally, it's been a very, very positive experience growing up and living in Israel. But in particular, one of the things that I feel that I'm most fortunate living here is the incredible startup ecosystem. And I think this is something that you probably could relate to as well. Not only the startup ecosystem, but the Web3 ecosystem. And whenever I go to conferences abroad, people are like, oh, Israel, like, what is that? Some kind of like war zone? Like they have this concept in their mind because of, obviously what they see in the news that this is some kind of like crazy war zone. And when they hear about some of the products and companies that come out of Israel, they're always really, really surprised. So like what are your thoughts? And this is not at all where I wanted to take the podcast. I wasn't planning on focusing on Israel. As you know, it's kind of like a global podcast. A lot of our listeners come from North America, so I don't know to what extent they're curious in how things are here, but I'm astounded again and again by how vibrant the ecosystem here is, especially in Web3. I mean, it's how I met you at one of the like million conferences. And I'm going on a tangent. I'm going to pass you
Yeah,
back the mic in a second,
not
but
only
I feel
vibrant
very much
but
that
also
it
resilient, right? Like I think one of the things that we've proven.
resilient. And I was going to even say, like, I was going to say even supportive. Like a week after October 7th, I was interviewed by Fast Company. They were running an article on how the attacks on October 7th had affected the local ecosystem in Israel, noting that it was a very vibrant high-tech ecosystem. And I think that everybody has just either been involved directly with fighting on the front lines, like I've been doing, or fighting on the back lines, like you and some of your team have been doing, by just like responding again and again and again to all the useful idiots that are, attacking Israel and Jews on social media daily. And if you're not being proactive in dealing with the situation, then you're just kind of sitting on your couch and either crying or just like feeling like you have no drive to do anything. So that the ecosystem, the community has actually been very, very supportive in that sense.
Mhm.
Like, have you also felt that?
Yeah, no, definitely there's a very, very strong sense that like we're in this together. And on the Web3 space, I don't know if anyone has looked at the charts, but if something if you wanted to avoid something other than, of course, the terrible atrocities on October 7th, is like missing the action on Web3 since October. So that's pretty much what it's that's we all had to pay heavy costs, and I don't want to, of course, compare like missing a pump on an altcoin to whatever what we are actually going through on the ground here in Israel. But there is an aspect of the cost in your energy and the focus. And what I've been doing, at least with on online and the social media, is giving at least my 2 cents, and taking an active part in trying to showing the truth and giving my honest take on what's happening, because there's so many lies being spread online that it just sometimes feels like the world really wants to believe lies, and really wants to get tricked and fooled. So I guess my feeling was, listen, if everyone's doing so much and I'm not fighting in the front lines, and I'm the least I can do is just my social profiles will take a will be now routed towards that. So I think everyone is doing what we can, and at the same time we want to keep the energy alive. We want to keep building. We want to keep creating. I think one of the best things, I don't know if we discussed it together, Et, but the one of the best things that people can do to support us is just keep building with us, keep relating to Israeli startups and Israeli business as business as usual. you know uh, don't let the political fodder and this war tangle with our innovation capabilities and our innovation potential, because that is what we all are striving for. We still, at the end of the day, we still all want to make a better place, and we still want to, you know, give our contribution to humanity as a whole. So I think that's important to take in mind whenever whenever people are wondering. And I've gotten a lot of messages like, listen, let me know how we can help, let me know how we can support you. And I think that is a way, like, just help us keep building, and keep making this ecosystem thrive.
Okay, so let's backtrack. You moved to Israel in 2004, and what were you doing then?
So back then, I was always basically how I always been, which is juggling between my musical career and my technological career. So I graduated. So what happened is, if we go a bit backwards, I came first to Israel at age 18. I came in as a part of a program called Akshara, which
Hmm.
is from a Zionist youth movement. And I never thought of moving to Israel when I first came here. But then I got here, and I really kind of started feeling love. And then I started my studies in Mexico, made a student exchange with the Technion, 2001. And back then, I already decided that I wanted to come live here. So I still went back and finished my studies. So I graduated and came here already ready to, like, live in Israel. And back then, I was uh, I was starting to work on whatever work was available in Tel Aviv, from like fixing computers to waiting tables until I really start getting some gigs. I remember back then I also got a programming job at a startup, and I continued that until I said, okay, now I want to release my second album. We got our first album released with Phonical Records here in Israel, which is it's quite a well known record label for the people that are into psytrance. So it's not like a global. It's not a Warner Music or Sony, but for the Israeli trance scene, like Phonical Records was a household name back then. And then I started, playing. We are playing, touring around. We played Australia, Germany, Japan. So that was a very, very exciting part of
Wow.
my journey. And when I came back from like almost a year in Australia, from 2007 to 2008, I was also running like the electronic music program in a college here in Tel Aviv. The head music program,
Hmm.
and I decided to go back into development and programming. And then by 2011, I started, getting hooked on Angry Birds, and I decided, wow, the iPhone app, this is
I
this
wasn't expecting that.
this is the next big thing, right? And then from developing in what we call like .NET back then, was so dealing with small changes in databases, and that was, you can actually start, you know, programming for iPhone and doing the whole thing right there. Like as a single developer, you could build a whole app by yourself. So that's what I did back in 2011. I created an app called Loopax, which is still in the App Store. We had like 250,000 downloads. Uh, so it's a very simple app. I don't know. This is only being
Wow.
recorded in audio. So imagine that you have basically a very cool loop mechanism where you, I don't know if you hear it, but you choose the parts
I hear it.
and then you just add some loops, right?
Boom,
Yeah.
ba, ooh, ba, ooh, ba, ooh. Woo! Nice.
Yeah, and then you record your performance, and that got us like, yeah. That's, and you can select from a ton of styles, and that led me to meet my now co-founder Edwin, because he runs one of the largest labels in the world for
Whoa, whoa,
this
whoa, whoa, whoa! Wait,
samples and
you're
loops.
jumping the gun.
I
That
am.
wasn't that
Yeah.
was in 2011.
So in 2011,
Ah,
no,
okay.
no,
Well, you guys are together that long.
no, sorry. I was programming apps in 2011 until I got, until I got to and build my own app. It took like 2 years of, making a lot of apps and getting better at development. So it was 2013 when we made Loopax. So almost 10 years ago, more. And making that app,
And then
yes. And then where were we? 2013. I jumped the gun.
no, no, go ahead. I want to know what happened. Like what happened with you and Edvin, and also I want to know what happened, like how you got into crypto,
Yeah.
and I also want to know what you're working on now. So,
Great, great, great.
hence the and then.
Yes, yes, yes. So back then, I was really into making this app a huge thing, and we actually made some profits out of the store selling those
Hmm.
packs in the app store, and that was right where the booming of the mobile apps were a thing, and people were already saying that we will be doing everything through our iPhones and iPads. This started as an iPad app actually, and the thought was,
Nah, that's
yeah,
crazy.
there'll be no music studios, there'll be nothing, everything's going to be done in your iPad and your iPhones, and that's what we're getting into. But obviously, that the iPhone and the iPad transform our life, but music is still requiring a good sound sound studio. Not the same gear, but yes, the same, but still a proper music studio. Anyway, I still kept on developing, and I was working for a startup called NG, where I was the lead tech lead on iOS development. And that's when
Mm-hmm.
I already got into kind of Bitcoin around 2014, but it was my first.
Mm-hmm.
When you enter crypto, the first tuition you pay is buying the top. So the first cycle where Bitcoin was crossing $1,000 and it was going parabolic. So your immediate thoughts as a non-experienced noob is, wow, if this is going like at this rhythm, the next step is $10,000. So of course I got a Bitcoin and at 900 something just to watch it go down to 200. Right? That was the first. So that was my first
And then you
experience.
sold at 200.
No, it didn't sell, but it was reduced to almost nothing. And but I was oblivious to the whole crypto thing. I didn't know what Ethereum was. I didn't know what crypto coins. I didn't know about any other coin other than Bitcoin until 2016-17 came. I was working in a company where the founders, the husband of the co-founder, the husband of Galia Ram, he was running some ICOs, right? And he was getting helping companies launch their
Mm-hmm.
ICOs. So that got me really, really down into the crypto rabbit hole, as we know it. And back then, I started doing some in depth research. And by 2018, I started digging deeper and deeper into the new. So what everyone's looking for now, which is what's the next Solana, back then was, so what's the next Ethereum, right? And lo and behold, the closest at least technologically wise, was EOS. And I started to look into EOS really deep, and I really, really, really understood how delegated proof of stake was had the potential to change how how blockchain and smart contracts are done. So I got into tech, I got really involved, and I made the second newbie mistake on Web3, which is never marry your coins. So I did. I did marry my investment, and not
Don't
only
get
that. So
emotional.
I founded the EOS Israel community. I was looking for seeing this, EOS New York and EOS Brazil, and EOS, there was EOS Canada and EOS Nigeria, and there was all these EOS communities popping up. And I said, okay, let's see, where can I find EOS Israel? And you couldn't. So I said, okay, so if there's none, I'll create it. And that's how I founded the EOS Israel community. I started getting in touch with a lot of people. I brought a lot of businesses to build on EOS, including high profile companies like Kyber Network and Equilibrium. So they were, I was helping them grow in the space, get connected, and I spent most of my 4 or 5 years. So I spent almost the rest of the 2018-19 bull run and until the last cycle, just you know keep hodling and building on EOS. And my last attempt on growing and trying to make the best for the ecosystem was the last bull cycle I created. I founded EOS Starter, which which my aim was for it to be the premier launchpad on EOS. So there was, card starter and soul starter, and it says, wait, this launchpad thing is making people take their coins out of the exchange, staking them, and making use of them, right? Like bringing those tokens out of the exchange and making use of them off chain. And so I thought that was what EOS needed. So I created the project. We actually did the largest NFT sale on EOS for the Tartiers. So at least I can say, at least I have that under my belt, which is not the
At
same
least
as,
you have something to show for it.
and it's not the same as the largest NFT sale on OpenSea. Okay, it's still EOS, right? So the next big
What could I
realization.
just ask before you continue? Because I want to know how it ends. But like, why were you so infatuated with EOS? Like, I feel like the Ethereum ecosystem and other blockchains were already then, I wouldn't say they were exploding, but um, there was significant interest. Like, what drew you to EOS
Okay,
so heavily? Also,
so first of all, I think in terms of the technical aspects of what EOS offered back then, there really was no parallel. So it was like a sub-second finality, TPS of already back then 4,000 transactions per second. So it was an order of magnitude more than Ethereum and Bitcoin already back then. And just the
hmm
it really created a sense of community. A lot of events, a lot of the brightest minds, getting involved and building on it. So I really got excited, and I got involved with the people building, and that's on the so it's kind of a contradiction, right?
were you taking profits? Were you like, was this was there money involved, or was it just like passion, soul passion?
Yeah, no, it was so passionate. Nobody paid me for doing the community. Like I got some blog producers back then. It was Liquidius to sponsor the beers and the pizza, but that was like 50 years could do that for an event. So back then,
Generational wealth.
yeah, exactly. So on the one hand, I would say, of course, the financial mistake is do not marry your investments. They're tokens. You should know how to take profits and don't
hmm
marry. And the flip side, do join communities. Like, do get involved with the people. It's not just about the tech and the hype and number go up.
Right. I was gonna say, like, these companies, these protocols, they thrive on people like you. In other words, like, in the end of the day, their biggest asset is their community. It's people like you who take their own initiatives and drive production and drive facility and utility, and traffic. Like, without people like you, these communities are worthless. Without the community, the token is worthless.
Mhm.
So it's definitely like a balancing act, and it's a hard one. So I think if you translate it to, like, the real takeaway is take profits.
Yeah, always be taking profits. That's a number one rule in EOS. And I did. I also did fairly well in some like EOS tokens that did really well. I haven't sold all my EOS. Like I still hold a bag of some EOS and EOS projects. So it's not like I left. I now I also have a very I always have a place for EOS in my heart because I know the people involved, and it becomes kind of part of your network. Um, but so I don't hold any resentment of the block one debacle and the whole thing, which that also drove me to a lot of uh, both disappointments but also
Could
opportunities.
you just expand on the Black One debacle?
Yeah, sure. For a bit of background.
Yeah. So what happened with
Yeah,
EOS for those of us who are not familiar?
great, great. So that's a very important background. So if you remember the EOS ICO, run by a company named Block One, founded by Brock Pierce, Dan Larimer,
Mm-hmm.
and Brendan Bloomer. That company launched a very particular ICO
Mm-hmm.
which lasted a whole year. Right. The mechanism of the ICO is that you would send every day you would send Ethereum to a smart contract, and the same amount of EOS was being distributed to the people who donated Ethereum that day, according to rising and falling. But the thing is, the token started to trade a few months after, so it was already trading live in all the exchanges from Binance to OKX to Huobi while the ICO was going. So there was a lot of people also like like leveraging, like,
The-
doing
so
arbitrage.
there must have been arbitrage there.
Yeah, there
Yeah.
was a lot of arbitrage doing, like
Mm-hmm.
if the token pumped that day and there were not enough people like on the pool by the end of the day, people would just go to the ICO and put their Ethereum there because they knew that they would get cheaper yields on the ICO and vice versa, right? So that ICO ended up being the largest ICO in history. It raised $4 billion. And then at the end
Wow.
of the year, the whole community was like,
In,
what are they gonna do with, it was kind of like, what?
with all this Ethereum. And
Yeah.
what year was that?
What?
When was that?
That was, I think,
When was that? When was that?
2017. I think 2018 was when the ICO
Mm-hmm.
ended. And
Okay.
yeah.
So then they had all this Ethereum.
So they had a ton of Ethereum. They sold a lot into Bitcoin. They became, I think, the third or fourth largest Bitcoin holder after Grayscale and another company. Like, really, you would see the chart. It was like Grayscale, and then I don't know. There's another company, and then that's Block One. So they became one of the largest Bitcoin holders. And then what happened is that at the event called Block One June, they announced both the social network named Voice, which I ended up working at, and that a billion of that $4 billion of the ICO was going to be invested back into the community, back into the developers, back into the ecosystem. And I think that promise, right, which in the one hand they were not forced to do, but in the flip side they were expected to do, to use that money to grow the ecosystem. I think that was a big expectation from the whole community, and most of us, including a lot of businesses that I got to work with, were like putting the work forward, putting sweat equity, investing their own money, building a ton of ecosystem apps, and there were some of the best apps built on EOS, with the expectation that Block One will pick this up, they'll invest in the ecosystem, and they'll move this forward. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. Right? What ended up happening is that, most like, I'm assuming, okay, so this is just speculation, but I'm assuming that because they had to become, they turned from a small startup with 10 or 12 people, mostly developers, it turns into this massive corporation of 120, 140 developers, not overnight, but over the course of a few months. I'm thinking that the goal of the company became uh, from investing in the ecosystem and doing what they're promised about growing the largest layer one ecosystem in the space, to protecting the nest egg, right? Which is what they have done so far. Block One ended up building Bullish, an exchange that is many we don't hear about it because it's not for retail, but they are one of the largest exchanges for institutions. A lot of institutions do large volume trading there, um, for a lot of tokens. It's anyway. So we had a lot of businesses hoping and waiting for Block One to invest in them. They even did. They did a lot of. I don't know how to put it, but uh, I don't have to call it dirty tricks, but it was they had a program where they would invest like 50K or something like this in a company with a promise of a larger investment following up. So people got that, and kept in building, kept in investing. On our space, how long did that 50K last for when you're building a serious project in Web3, right? It's like a tip of the bucket, but that follow up investment never came, and the community started growing bitter and resentful with Block One. That ended up culminating with a debacle between the EOS block producers and Block One when they decided that they were going to shut down the vesting of the tokens that were being sent to Block One on a daily basis for the course of 10 years. So there was, I think, 10% of the tokens being being distributed, vested on a daily basis to Block One on that vesting contract. And then the
Hmm.
block producers got together, say, listen, it's been 3 years. Block One has done nothing for us. We've been, we've built all this. Uh, we've had to do all this thing alone, and then they decided to very abruptly shut down the vesting, right? And that created an entire very, very, very harsh debacle because there was another player involved, which is Brock Pierce, a dear friend of mine. I went to visit him also at Puerto Rico. He's well, Brock Pierce is it's very well known in the scene, right? And I remember reaching out to him and say, Brock, we have to move this thing forward. We have to grow. We cannot let this, we cannot let this die. We need to grow ears. The community needs you. And I think on a very good intention move, what he did was he traded his entire equity in Block One for the EOS tokens. He said, okay, I'm now going to invest in EOS. I'm going to take a very big position and I'm going to invest back to the ecosystem. But then the other dirty trick that was pulled on him, I think the EOS that was promised to him was the EOS that was on that vesting contract. So yeah. So when the block producers decided to to turn off the faucet on that vesting contract, that became like a personal conflict between Brock Pierce and the block producers, which ended up not very brightly. I helped him create Helios VC, which is, I think it's still running, but that was a VC meant for investing in the EOS ecosystem. And what the EOS VC was originally created for, which never fulfilled this promise. And I think I haven't discussed it again with Brock, but I think as I created EOS Starter as my kind of last ditch effort to try to really push the community forward and grow the ecosystem. I think
Salvage.
yeah,
Hmm.
salvage the ecosystem. I think Helios VC was Brock's attempt at doing the same with a much more
Hmm.
capital intensive project.
Wow, I didn't actually know most of that.
Yeah, it's impossible to see what's going on inside the ecosystem unless you're in it, right? Unless you're in it, you don't know what's really going on. And many people that are not in, they just look at it as a scam, right? It's a $4 billion scam. Nobody's building on it. Nobody's doing anything, and they don't see the whole, the whole thing that's going in the on the underneath the surface, right? And I think that's going to connect me to how
Hmm.
I started doing sound work, because what I realized when I started EOS Starter and I created the Launchpad, and that was a very hard realization for me too, is that, well, I think nobody's actually building on EOS. I mean, we have like 6 7 new projects trying to, and out of those, out of like 10 or 12 projects, only like 5 or 6 have got a token they want to launch. So it's like, it, what are we going to do? So I understood that we practically are going to have to become this pretty much a dev shop and a building shop for new launch, like not only launchpad that launches the token, but actually like an incubator that builds a project, gets the team running, puts the idea onto place, and launches the project as kind of an incubator and producer of this projects. And part of this effort was I brought in my old pal from the iPhone app from Lupax, Edwin, and I told him, Edwin, listen, what's going on in your industry, man? Like, this industry, it's under the radar. Nobody like nobody's like all the Web3, all the music Web3 companies are trying to
This
go
industry being the music industry.
the music supply chain industry. Okay, so I'm gonna make a distinction here because we've seen a ton of music
Okay, and,
streaming.
and here tread carefully because I imagine that not everybody is as acquainted with the music supply industry as you and Edvin are. So
Of course.
um,
I'm going
dumb
to
it down for me.
yeah, I'm
Hmm.
gonna definitely get into the details and explain it very simply. So we've seen a lot of Web3 music blockchain projects back the way since the first bull run. It was
Hmm.
called a music chain, and you have your music chain tokens. And anyway, we've seen a lot of music blockchain trying to decentralize the the music industry. But the issue there has always been that there is they feel the need to like re-educate the market, and that's a very tough thing to do. Very few products manage to accomplish
Hmm.
that, something like the iPhone, or like cars like Tesla. But really, re-educating to the market and introducing a new way of doing things, that's very hard call. So going to the user and saying, listen, drop your Spotify. Here's a new player, and this player has these songs that are going directly to the artist. I think that's a very tough market to enter. And what I realized, and I told Edwin, is listen, your industry, the music sample and sound industry, it's not being tapped by Web3 at all. Like there are just a few incumbents that are have their own markets with, and all the what we were dealing with, both in the app that we created and what Edwin is dedicated to, is not the streaming business. So it's not music streaming. It's the it's and bits and pieces, so the building blocks of those tracks. So when an artist that you like is sitting down the studio, and he may be recording his voice or the guitar, the all the other stuff that comes in, like the drum beats, and it applies a lot more for electronic music, because some bands, they only do recording, so they record the bass and the drums and the but every one of those recordings, they are their own part, right? And maybe if I try to dumb it down, let's think of a band. Okay, when a band comes in to record the a new track, they don't know that it's going to be a hit song. The bass player comes in, does his part, the drum does his drumming, the singer does the singer, and the guitar plays his guitar, and we have those four tracks. Those are the, as we know it in music production, the stems. And it's all fine and dandy, right? The royalties and the streaming revenue that is accrued by these tracks are going to the band, right? And the band is this entity that is formed by these four people: the guitarist, the singer, the drummer, and the bass player. And nobody deals with, okay, what happens when, if the band splits? And usually what ends up happening is that the lead singer, or the main guy in the band, is going to get all the royalties, and the rest of the band is going to scram off and do their own thing, and get a job in high tech or something. So
God forbid.
that I think that part is what we are trying to really really modernize, and that part I think hasn't been tapped in by Web3, which is, how about each one of them? And I'm talking about a band, but when you're doing electronic music, you have like 60 channels, and one is the beat, and one is the bass, and one is the hi-hat and the snare, and the effects, and the roll up and the snare roll, and it's a complex track. But how about Each one of those members mints their own stem, their own performance, and they decide on a rev share when they mint that track. When they publish the track, they say, "Listen, it's all going to be 25% for each one, and each one's going to get an equal part of the track." And the smart contract is going to make sure that whenever that song is being replayed, we're going to get our fair share of that. And not only that, but let's say there, you know, the term remix, right? When someone takes just the vocal and makes a whole new track out of it, with and just taking the vocals, but they're using different elements and they're turning it into a hip hop track, or they're turning it into a new track. Like hip hop
Hmm.
was built of this, right? They take a loop from an old Queen track, which is din 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 din, and that's Vanilla Ice, right? But it was originally Queen's song, Under Pressure, and it's the same thing, right? So maybe how about that loop can be, you know, rewarding the one that created that loop specifically. And I think that's the whole idea behind Soundwork. And I'm going to tie it down with the story about EOStarter. So I came to Edwin. I told him, listen, this industry is ripe for disruption. Nobody's doing this. I'll help you do this, and you'll be the CEO. It's all your project. You'll run the show. I'm just going to help you out as a launchpad. And that's how the idea of Soundwork came about. But then one a few months in, right, when I was running the launchpad and getting a lot of projects running, you know, Edwin came to me and said, "Listen, I know I've built this function. The functionals is my thing, you know, it's my business. But this whole blockchain Web3 NFT thing, I don't. What am I supposed to do with this? Well, you know, what's the next step?" And so when EA started, I came to the harsh realization that after 5 6 years of spending my sweat, blood, and tears on EOS, I don't think this is going to reach the escape velocity that projects like Solana did. I just said, okay, so what are we building next? And out of all the projects that we were building, and out of all the ideas that have come through my awareness during the last bull run, Sounder kept ringing and they're saying like this is like quite unique. Like, you know, like the whole industry, led by a few incumbents like Splice and Lander, they're not yet touching NFTs. They're not touching Web3. They're in a comfy place because everything's like all this industry is not like Spotify and Apple Music and Amazon Music. This is all copyright free. Everyone gets whatever, you know. Nobody's tracking which sample is using which and where and who created it and who made it. It's all like, you know, abstract stuff. And then the flip side, all that we know in Web3 music is, you know, Snoop Dogg coming with a new track, putting his face in a project, and saying, "Yes, we're doing now music NFTs," and that's
It up,
yeah.
day.
And there's only so much
I smoke weed every day.
exactly, and there's only so much Snoop Dogg to go around for the whole industry, right? So that's how the idea came up. So I told Edwin, listen, I'll take the wheel. I run this. I'll be a CEO. You help me bring in the industry, the business side of things, the partnerships with the like we've signed with Identity Records and with Magic Samples and with a lot of labels of this industry that are doing the loops, the samples, the presets, the VSTs, the tools that are being used by music producers, and let me deal with the tech and the product, and I'll run that part. And that's how Soundware came to be. And fast forward, we're now launching our beta marketplace. We're announcing this today. It's the alpha marketplace, so it's not even yet the beta. It's the first initial step on really bringing this vision to light.
Super, super exciting. So, for our listeners, just if I could summarize as to where you guys are and where you're going now. So, number one, you're looking for users. Okay, alpha launched. Anybody who wants to jump on and get a feel for the place, we'll put it in the show notes with the link.
Yes.
Number two, I presume you're looking for investors and backers. This is a great opportunity. From what I understand, in addition to supporting the continued development of the platform, you guys are also planning on launching a token down the line. So there may be opportunities here to take both an equity stake and or a token stake in the company.
Yes, sir.
And number three, partners. Anybody within this industry or who's looking to get into this industry and is interested in partnering with the Soundworks team, who I could personally say from experience working with them are just stand up guys, really phenomenal guys. You have an opportunity to reach out to Hernan at Hernan at soundwork.io
Yes.
and explore opportunities for collaboration or investment or just just rock the platform. So I think as far as Soundwork is concerned, we pretty much wrapped it up there. um,
Thank you so much for the plug, ET. I generally stumble at that part, but you've summarized it pretty well. So thank you.
absolutely.
Not financial advice.
NFA, NLA, DYOR.
And the new one is DNF. Do not FOMO.
Do not FOMO. I was thinking like what other F's could that represent? They weren't good. So do not FOMO. Absolutely. Keep it level headed. But I wanted to ask you just as a musicpreneur, besides reinventing the music supply chain, what other promises may blockchain hold for the music industry? And I know that this has been long, but I've thoroughly enjoyed it. So we'll wrap it up with this, and then I think we'll let it go from there. But I just would really appreciate getting your input on that because I know at the end of the last bull, it was becoming a big issue. In the last bull run, NFTs were huge. Every day, I think there were something like 800 projects that launched NFT collections. Um, on Ethereum and Solana, anyways. And towards the end of the bull, people started to launch all kinds of like music NFTs, not in the way that you envisioned it,
Mhm.
but it was definitely becoming big. Certainly, Snoop Dogg was one of the ones who was leading it. We had numerous clients who were exploring things in the space. And then as soon as the bear market hit, everybody kind of just like dropped whatever they were working on. And I'd be curious where you see it picking up from here.
Yeah, yeah. So first of all, I'm gonna this is a great question. So I'm gonna just split it into three. Okay. So the first one, I think it's very clear to everyone, which is the power of decentralization, and that comes for the entire music industry. Whoever is a music creator and a musician knows that this industry is fairly centralized, both in the both on the rights of stuff, like on the copyright stuff, being the big labels of this, and then also on the streaming side, right? We know the very few platforms hold that power, being Spotify, Apple Music. So blockchain has the potential to give, spread out the centralization of resources, power, and control. So that's on the decentralization part, and the blockchain is very poised to do that, both on almost every aspect of the music industry. The other part of it is the digital ownership, which brings me to NFTs. Right, until now, all you had to do with a track or a music item that you buy is just listen to the music, enjoy it, and that's it. But now with NFTs, you actually can prove ownership of a particular sound, a particular track, and then you can use it for many different things other than just listening to it. So you can flex it online. It's a digital flex, but it's also a tradable item. So you can resell it at a later date. You can use it as proof to enter unique experiences with your favorite artist. So that opens up a brand new way to connect with the musicians and the artists and the music creators, right? And I think the third part of what I would name the potential of music and the blockchain is the governance part. So right now, who determines which song is the most played and the most listened to, and we only have one YouTube and one Billboard and one Grammy Awards, and those are basically setting the trends. And Web3 has this potential to create a million new very niche ecosystems where each one has its own universe of the artists that are trending, the new genres that are created. And when we're talking about AI generated music, this comes into place. This comes into play increasingly more, because when AI generated music starts becoming, it already is a thing, but when it starts actually competing with the human creator that we all come to know and love, the fostering of these new genres and new creations and new mixtures of the human with the AI, and the human vocalist with the AI band, and the AI DJ with the actual original inputs, and this whole mixture that is going to be created, that is going to require uh, a decentralization and a leveraging of blockchain technologies, so that we can expand the enjoyment of music and this whole genres that are going to be basically endless and limitless. And that's how I would say that's the potential.
Well, you've sold me. You've sold me. I'm definitely bullish on music and blockchain. Two things which I love as it is, and I'm bullish on Soundworks, and I'm loving the beginning of the bull run vibes. I think it's going to be a really fun summer,
Yes, yes,
at
yes.
least from a blockchain standpoint. I don't know if I could say the same for Israeli security.
As you've seen, we're not only resilient as a Web3 scenes, we're resilient as a people, we're resilient as a country. We'll see this through. We'll come back stronger than ever, as we always do. And I'll plug in an Am Israel Chai into the episode. So we're here to stay. We're going to make it through, and we're going to thrive. And the things that you'd be seeing coming out of the Israeli tech scene, and particularly the Israeli Web3 space, I think are going to impress a lot of people. We've already seen some stellar launches like Starknet and other companies that are making strides. So yeah, I'm bullish.
All right. Thank you so much. If our listeners want to follow you, in addition to your email, which I already plugged in, what other platforms are you most vocal on?
So I'm on X as Hernan Arber, just like my name spells all together in Twitter, X. I am in LinkedIn. You can just ping me. If you join our Discord on Soundwork, I'm active there, and you can reach me personally. I'm not that far away CEO that you need to talk to my assistant to get to. So reach out
Yet.
and
Yet.
yes. Well, let's see. But reach out, come test the platform. We would love to hear your feedback. You will need a Phantom wallet, and you'll need to set it on DevNet mode. But this is the part where we, improve, fix the bugs, make it very, very nice and tight for a mainnet launch.
And make sure to tune in to the Web3 Creators podcast, available on Spotify and wherever else you find your podcasts.
Thank you, brother, and Shabbat Shalom to you too.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Code. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe, share with your friends, and to tune in again next week for more fun and insightful conversation.